Hey everyone, welcome back to the BizBlend podcast, the show where we talk about building businesses without burning down your actual life in the process. As always, I'm your host Sana, and today for this episode, listeners, we are diving into a topic that I believe it hits a lot of founders right there in the gut. Entrepreneurship while balancing a family of six. Now, not theory, but real life, real kids, real payroll. Now, listeners, my guest today, well, he's the powerhouse behind Skelly Build, one of Austin's most recognized names in luxury residential construction. Now, a bit about Skelly Build. The company has already sold over $65 million in projects and is on track for a 14.5 million this year, listeners. They're known for their tight systems, vertical integration, and in-house cabinetry, also specialized project teams, all the things that scream well-oiled machine. But then the twist. Our guest is not running a high-growth company. He is doing it while raising a family of six. So that means leadership meetings, EOS scorecards, site walks, plus school runs, sticky hands, and someone yelling that they cannot find their shoes again. So if you are listening right now thinking, oh my goodness, I mean, I can barely manage my inbox with two plants and a dog and all that, this conversation is for you because we are going to talk about the structure behind Skelly Build, the reality of trade offs, the friction between being people first at work and still having people at home who need you present and not just profitable. So, listeners, meet my incredible guest, Sean Skellenger. And Sean, welcome to the show. And it's really an honor to have you here with us.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate the introduction, and it does sound more impressive than even though I live it every day. It's very great summary. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. And to be honest, Sean, listeners, we were just, talking about a bit about this, that um, four kids. I think right now we are at that cusp of, that anxiety or I don't know, that transition where we would dread thinking about even one kid or maybe even thinking about getting a pet because I think that demands a complete shift of lifestyle, complete shift of our commitments as well. And I think that's something, it is messy, it is human, it is obvious. So let's try to understand listeners from an entrepreneur's POV. And Sean, with that, let's start at the messy middle itself. Now, talking about Skelly Build, it is clearly not an accident. You have this vertically integrated model in place, a culture that, it seems dialed in. So, when you first decided that I'm really going to build this company for real, what did your home life look like that?
Yeah. So when we go back to the beginning, the first thing I have to talk about is my wife Diana. So Diana started the company in 2017 by
Mhm.
herself, and she is a powerhouse woman. Obviously, she entered a male-dominated industry in Texas, which is obviously a red state, and she did a phenomenal job growing it. I stepped in about 2018 when it was obvious that it was growing out of control. And so at that point in time, we did not have any kids. It was just us. We were working a lot and we were just focused on, day to day, the growth, the limited resources that we were dealing with just two people. Construction is a very emotional roller coaster for a lot of our clients. And we're dealing with custom construction. So we're not spec builders. Everything is very custom. And so at the time, our lifestyle was so focused on building the business, getting through the day, getting through the weekend, through the year. So it was a much different mindset at that point in time. And it was very obvious, Diana was the expert in construction and I have a accounting background.
Yeah.
And so I'm very much processed. And so what my challenge was if we wanted to grow this company and be successful, and
Mm,
have a family and a work-life balance, we really needed to establish processes and how do we do each phase of the business from sales to estimating to project management to warranty to customer service to
mm,
HR. And so my job coming in was actually to take how Diana did it, take it out of her head and put it into a process. And so in 2018, we invested in a project management software, and we were able to customize that project management software so that we could then provide a step-by-step how-to for the people that we brought in. And so we were able to create this model of how you successfully sell a job, how you successfully estimate a job, how you successfully project management a job. And so we created the roadmap for anybody to come in.
yeah. I mean, first thing, Sean, shout out to Diana because yes, especially construction is definitely um, male dominated industry, and um, I think that really kind of how should I say? I mean, gave me that sense of, that joy and that appreciation. Because one more thing which I think I really, I was reading this somewhere in an article or maybe in a newspaper online that, especially when it comes to startups, we get the statistics that so many startups within the first 5 years of their operation, they fall, and it's not the investment, it's not the market, it's not the money. It's kind of mostly the fallout between their co-founders or the partners or
Mhm,
stakeholders. And especially when we see a business from a POV of a couplepreneur, I think there's this, this very obvious inner nudge, especially within people, who would say that, okay, it is risky because how because being couplepreneur, you're like, you are kind of uh, mingling with the professional and the personal lives as well. So I think this is such a great example where, there are clearly defined roles. The partner is understanding, okay, what I can do to make sure that there are structures, there are processes, and the weight kind of gets lifted off of another, partner or the founder. So I think that is something that I personally definitely am going to take away, from what you shared about the origin story here. So yeah, thank you so much, Sean, for
yeah,
sharing.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to expand on that. I mean, working with she was my spouse then, and is now, but we were married, and so we had been together for, quite a long time before that, and we'd seen each other work separately. But once you get together, working and living together at that stage of our life, we talked about business a lot, and so we had to establish boundaries. We had to figure out when we talked about work, when we didn't talk about work. And then actually in the work setting, who is in charge of what piece? When you think of a business from the very beginning, you've got, sales, operations, and accounting. You have those three major components. And so who was in charge of each and how do we process it and set standards and make sure that we're giving a consistent Skelly experience to every client and what is that experience? And so, there was a lot of times where we were doing what couples do at times when they disagree and it did get heated like any business and any partnership, but then we had to come home to each other and it's the same person that we were, t- you know, battling with at work. We're now back at home. And so that's just part of being a couple. Uh, and so I think that that happens with any partnership. It just does have add an extra layer when you also live with them and you want to grow a family with them.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more with you, Sean, on this. Um, Another question. I mean, it is a bit challenging because I think it's kind of an introspective one. Like looking back at the decision from today's vantage point, Sean, would you still say it was worth it for your family, or did some people in the house pay a price you did not see coming? Like, kind of people would normally perceive that, you have 4 kids, you have a business in construction, which is, it's emotional, it's client facing. Both of the parents are heavily invested into this. So, what would you say?
I would say I would do it again 100%, and I don't think any of our kids have sacrificed because of the commitment to our company. And really, to expand on that, it's because of our team. Our team is very talented. We have experts, from the construction industry and beyond inside of our leadership and in our team, and we as leaders have done a really good job setting the roadmap to where we wanna go and letting the experts execute on that vision. And so since we've had a kid, we had our first kid in May of 2020. So we're
Okay.
talking middle of COVID
COVID.
or right at the beginning of COVID. We've
Okay.
got this brand new baby. We're in Texas, which we were thankful about because construction was still going on. It was considered an essential service. So we were able to work and do our jobs, but everything was moving much slower. And so we were trying to manage business, new baby, and that was pretty chaotic. Um, but the uh, the great thing was that it actually was COVID, and so we were able to, yes, work and manage clients, but the jobs were going slower, right? Some of our clients did not want us to work
Yeah.
when they were in town because of the scare, and so we were able to spend time with our firstborn. And so now that our firstborn is 5.5, we've actually never come out of not spending lots of time with them. We spend every weekend with our kids. We put our kids to bed, we get them up and have breakfast with them every day. And so we've never lost track of how important the family aspect is. And to do that, you've got to have a great team, you've got to have great vision, you have great processes set so that your team can execute the vision that you have and make sure that they're exceeding the standard that you've set for your client.
Absolutely. And I think I really appreciate that you mentioned this because um, a lot of founders who may be balancing both the sides, they may say on the surface level that, everything is fine, we are streamlining everything. But I think uh, here, not only the processes, but the people. When you have a good team, you know there's this kind of an energy and that exchange that happens because there's an understanding that, yes, as a team member, the responsibility has been given to me, and I am uh, you know energetically aligned with making sure that, I have that ownership, and I um, you know perform or maybe exceed the standards, because I know for the fact that the person who is having the vision, or let's say the people who are running the company or the brand or whatever it is, they are also human, they are also emotionally, financially, physically, everything invested. And I think that
Mhm.
kind of dynamic actually, you know becomes kind of the main oil or the fuel for that, machine, that, well-oiled machine that we generally say about any company. So yeah.
I agree, and I believe in the, mindset of who, not how, and that is if I wanna get to, um, somewhere beyond where I'm at now, I need to hire experts who know what they're doing, and I need to find who's that can specialize and be the best because I know I'm not the best. I I'm the best at being a visionary, frankly, and telling people where we're going and how we're going to get there. And Diana is the best at being uh, the sales queen. We call her the oracle. But we need lots of who's that are passionate about construction, care about our clients, care about quality craftsmanship, and we let them do the work. And so what that does is that provides a work-life balance to us and them because then they have who's they rely on to execute the work. So they get work-life balance. So the whole company and system has a great work-life balance. At the same time, we're able to execute a great company, a great vision, and great custom construction for our clients.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely makes sense. Before we delve deeper into, the systems, on how Skelly Build runs, and then something which you also have adapted at home. One question that, once again comes to my mind, Sean, is now there's this growing conversation that work-life balance, it is not a thing. It's a myth. You cannot have 50-50. Maybe sometime you have to sacrifice your work for your home or for your personal stuff. And maybe for work, sometimes you have to sacrifice the latter. What's your opinion on this? Is it feasible or possible to have a 50-50, or is it something that needs a different kind of approach and a mindset here for achieving that work life balance intentionally?
Yeah, so what I believe is kind of what I went through, which is at the beginning of the business, it was just us. We didn't have any kids. We had some cats, but they're more self-efficient. And so we were able to really focus on the business. And again, we made some really good hires. We were able to show the vision and show the process on how to execute the work. And that kind of shifted us more towards personal. Right. And so I think in our journey through our company's life and family life, we did start out at very much focused just on work. But as time has gone on, we've gotten to certain points where we've able to kind of pass off more and more responsibilities. The company is growing, the company has become successful. It's fit, the market uh, has grabbed on to what we're offering. And so as you get more successful, you're able to give more away so that you can focus more on family. And so that's kind of been our journey as we started very much in no work-life balance, and it's become more and more work-life balance as the company has become successful, as we've gotten bigger, as we're able to give more responsibilities away. So I believe that you can get to work-life balance, but it does take a lot of grind, grit, blood, fights, sweat, tears to get there. But I wouldn't give up because at any point in time, we've had times where we thought we were gonna give up, and to look back and think of yeah, it's just very satisfying to look back and know that we got through those tough times and we're now better for it. We have a great company. We have the work-life balance that we want, and so does our people at our company, which is just as important. And so I would say I do believe in it, but you definitely have to grind to get there.
I really love your honesty in there, Sean. Really love your honesty because, yes, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship, uh, you know, building something from scratch and then turning it into a tangible vision in there, um, it definitely needs a lot of commitment in terms of your attention, showing up, time, money, planning, people, processes, and then at the same time, having or building a life, a family of yours. So um, I really appreciate that, this is not a fluff thing. Definitely, there is grit and resilience required here. But then this is like, it comes in stages. It, as you grow, it you kind of mindfully now intentionally begin to plan, okay, if I want to devote more time to my family, what are the things at the back end, especially for my work, which I need to plan and make sure they are streamlined, or at least, I can make systems at in place. And Sean, before we wrap up, um I think this is a very interesting question. Like, Skelly Build runs on the EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System. Like, as you mentioned, clear roles, scorecards, meeting rhythms. You have a vertically integrated model that keeps quality and communication also, in sync. So, what is one specific system from Skelly Build that you copied or adapted for your home so a family of six does not feel like, it's in the middle of a workplace? I mean, any differentiations that you kind of have or any parallels that you adapt in there?
Yeah, so, I'd like to talk about EOS. EOS has been very helpful for us. It does establish a lot of things that normal entrepreneurs know are important but don't have the time. It does make you do the lot of the components of the business that are fundamental to success.
Mm.
And so I like to say that in the EOS talks about getting everybody on the same page as to where we're going and how we're going to get there. And that is so important for business. But when you look at for your home life, it is just as important, right? Diane and I need to be on the same page with what are her long-term goals? What are her visions of the family and the kids? And so we have taken a lot of what EOS offers in terms of what are our personal core values, right? What is our personal uh, core purpose? So we're doing kind of an EOS at home, which is very similar to EOS at work, but it's focused on our home life so that we're on the same page, we know where we're going and how we're going to get there. And that has to do with many different goals, kids' goals, financial goals,
Mm.
um, what does she wanna do in 15 years from now, right? I mean, everybody has a general idea of what they wanna do. Okay, that's great. Well, let's get on the same page, and then EOS does a good job establishing that vision, then breaking it down to, what do I need to do this week to get to that vision, right? What is my 3-year goal? What is my 1-year goal? What is my 90-day goal? What is my 1-week goal? And it should all complement each other and lead to that big long-term vision that you have together. So we have done that at work, and then we brought it home, and I realize I'm an accountant and I sound, super process oriented, but the fact is that I don't know how entrepreneurs do it without this structure, right? When I look back at our time before EOS, I don't know how we did it. I don't know the systems we used. The vision was kind of sort of made up. Um, how we were gonna get there was just kind of a day-to-day decision making, and so I highly recommend some type of operating system, whether it's EOS or the Great Game of Business, as to how you're going to be successful because it only helps you get there, I think, quicker and gets everybody on the same page, and when you get everybody on the same page, some people don't wanna be on the bus, right? Some people see what you're about and they decide it's not for them. And actually, that's great for both parties because we want people who want to be on the Skelly bus, who see our vision, who want to be there when we get there. And if not, that's fine, right? It's we wish them the best of luck, and we're gonna keep our head down, have a lot of fun, and try to meet that vision. And so, having EOS at work makes a lot of sense, but then at home, it actually makes a lot of sense getting on the same page with your partner.
Mm. I mean, it definitely makes sense. And Sean, like, of course, like personally speaking, I also, I love to schedule, even if some people would say that, it's old school to-do list and all that stuff. But then sometimes, life can be so unpredictable that even if you have all the structures and processes in place, there can be many situations, for example, COVID, um, any kind of situation where you do not have even a structure for um, navigating through any kind of a contingency. So, how would you suggest, especially entrepreneurs who are trying to, uh, you know, not sacrifice their family or their themselves in order to, get their vision out there? Like how to navigate through those kind of unpredictable situations, like how you do, and with Diana, and yeah.
Yeah, I think the best way to talk about the EOS and all these systems is it's freedom inside of structure, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah, it does.
freedom inside of structure is how I would say you have to use these systems because life is too unpredictable, right? COVID, my kid waking up and is sick or not sleeping through the night and needs to do a, a urgent care visit in the night. Like everything is unpredictable. Um, and so it is freedom inside of structure. And so if you can think about these operating systems or your business as having a structure, right? There's more than one way to get from here to home, right? There's probably 50 ways, but you need to get to home. And so that's kind of the mindset of using these operations as structure, but the freedom on how you get there, you know, or any situation that you come up, y- there's always a great solution. And that's one thing we try to teach our people is, before you come to a manager with a problem or a client with a problem, you really need to have three solutions in mind and present those three, and the top one will come to the surface. And so again, that is structure of, you need to get this job moving faster, and you need to get to the finish line and keep the client happy. And then the freedom is how you do that, right? So that's coming with solutions before when you see a problem so that there is an answer, the client continues to trust us, et cetera. So that's just an example of what I mean by freedom inside of structure.
Mm. Yeah, I really, really love that. I really love that, um, and I think it's less slogan and more tension. But then I think the question is not that, are we perfectly people first? It is like when growth and people collide, how often do we walk it back and say that, we pushed too hard and we are going to fix that? So I think it's nuanced. However, I think there's definitely a solid approach here, especially as you mentioned about freedom in chaos. I think, and that is something, it may sound counterintuitive, but I think it is definitely achievable. And before we wrap up, Sean, I think, and this is, I think I really did, and it's a crime that, we missed this aspect here as well. I mean, it's kind of a very tricky kind of a thing that has there ever been a time that, um, because we are talking here about money, growth, and then emotional safety as well. Has there ever been a time that you considered slowing growth or saying no to any big opportunity or a big client deal because of what it would cost your family emotionally?
So the answer to that is yes. We've had some thin years. We had a time a couple years ago that was very difficult financially. We had some people leave. We had some money not come in that we thought. We had a new baby, and
Mm,
so there was a time where I was both of us were way overworked with the kids at home and at work, and then the money was pretty dry. And so at that time, yes, it was all about, kind of revisiting our processes and our structure and our strategy. And we've done that probably 3 or 4 times in the 8 years we've been if you start one from the get-go, we probably relooked at our strategy 3 times now. And so, yeah, absolutely. But in the last, I'd say 2 years, we've had the opposite, which is we're in growth mode. Our strategy is working great. The market is responding really well to us purchasing that custom cabinetry shop. We are now more vertically integrated in terms of the execution of our workforce on staff and our in-house labor. And so we are now in growth mode, whereas before, absolutely, we've had to reevaluate our strategy and make sure that we, mom and dad, are taken care of, because if mom and dad aren't taken care of, the kids aren't taken care of, people at work aren't happy. And so, yeah, we've definitely had to kind of stop, slow down, and reevaluate our strategy and then move forward.
yeah. And that is something I think many of our listeners will have this question in their mind, because what I am seeing is that, as you very perfectly said, there's this freedom in the process, in the structure as well. And the approach is nimble here. I mean, you're going back to the drawing board, trying to do iterations, or seeing where we can do this, where we can do that, but not at the cost of your family or their emotional safety. So I think that is something, it may sound a bit challenging. However, you actually, and like you are proving it through the example of what you're doing at Skelly Build and through your family. So thank you so much for addressing that question, Sean, and thank you so much for being honest and candid and not giving us any kind of glossy, like this social media version of entrepreneurship. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Uh, happy to talk further in the future.
And before we wrap up, Sean, of course, our listeners will have interest to explore more about Skelly Build, and also if they would like to connect with you, share their thoughts, or maybe have some kind of questions. What was the best way to do that?
Yeah, I'd love to continue the conversation. I do admire people who are willing to take risks like we did and succeed, or not. I mean, that's part of taking the risk. You don't get the reward without the risk. And I think, a lot of people in this world don't have the aptitude to take the risk. So I admire anybody who at least takes the risk. And I'm happy to share my experience with anybody who wants insights into whether it's the family dynamic, the business dynamic, or balancing both. And so the best way to contact me is email. And my email is Sean, SEAN, at Skelly Build. That's Sean, SEAN, at Skelly, SKELLY, Build, BUILD.com. And give me a couple days, but I'm happy to help out any way I can.
Amazing. Listeners, as you all know, I'm going to have all the links there in the show notes. And to all the listeners, I think what we realize here is you do not need a perfect balance chart, but you need honest seasons. Some chapters heavy on growth, heavy on family, but the danger sits in pretending the trade offs are not there. So, what I am taking away, and maybe you can also take this, maybe you can note them down. Building systems that protect people, not just profit. Having real conversations at home about risk instead of hiding behind everything is fine. And let your kids, your partner, your loved ones give you feedback that may sting, and treat it like a leadership review, not an attack. So, if you enjoyed this episode, listeners, share it with one founder friend who is juggling Zoom calls and school runs. Tag us, let us know what landed. And until next time, this is BizBlend, and I'm your host, Sana. And I urge all of you to subscribe to us, leave us a review, because that helps the keep running the wheels here at BizBlend. Thank you and take care. I'll see you in the next episode.